Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is Tom Joseph. I am a clinical Christian counselor, and I'm here to talk about the subject of anxiety. Many people have anxiety issues. Anxiety is something that's very hard to understand, yet we all feel it one way or another. Let me share with you, first of all, the definition of anxiety. If we're going to understand anxiety, we need to understand a simple definition. Tom Joseph's definition of anxiety is simply this: it's the anticipation of bad things to come. Yes, that's all it is, the anticipation of bad things to come. When people continue to anticipate something looming in the future that might be bad for them or might harm them, they become very anxious. And anxiety is given to us naturally by God in order for us to have a fight-flight theory or a fight-flight attitude. If we didn't have an anxiety, or if we didn't get anxious about something that was looming in the future, or something that was scary, or something that was going to harm us around the corner, then we wouldn't be able to defend ourselves. We wouldn't be able to fight or flight. When this happens, when we anticipate a bad thing to come, adrenaline is secreted in our bodies. When adrenaline is secreted, that adrenaline is given to us in order for us to do something physically. We're going to have to act quickly. We're going to have to be aware. We're going to have to be vigilant. We're going to be able to run or fight. What happens with anxiety, though, is when we do not use it for the proper reason, or if anticipatory anxiety is constantly present in our lives because of false belief systems or because of something that is not real, then the adrenaline is still secreting. People with anxiety disorder constantly secrete adrenaline in their system, anticipating bad things to come, whether it's realistic or unrealistic, whether there is a real imminent issue. And so when that adrenaline secretes into the system and you are not fighting or flighting, or you're not doing something active about it, you're living on adrenaline, and that adrenaline causes irreparable damage to your body eventually in the long term. For instance, if adrenaline is continuing to be secreted, and once the adrenaline settles down, and you haven't used your adrenaline, it begins to give you adverse physiological effects, such as pain, such as heart palpitations, such as stomach issues. Some people think they're having a heart attack. Some people think they're choking. Many people feel like they have something like Epstein-Barr syndrome. They feel like they're tired all the time, or they have some disease. Some people even claimed of having AIDS. They feel like they're dying because of anxiety that is a falsehood. Anxiety that doesn't have any substance to it, because the adrenaline continues to secrete. So what I'm going to share with you today is, first of all, there is anxiety that is useful. And the useful anxiety is when you use it for a fight-flight situation. You use it for an emergency. You use it to save someone else or save yourself from impending danger. Secondly, you have to understand that there is anticipating anxiety that is created in your mind based on the way you were raised. And if you just have anxiety that has been developed throughout the years because you lived in an unsafe environment, or you lived in an unhealthy environment, or you were raised as a little child anticipating bad things to come because your parents were always overreactive, or they had a drug problem or an alcohol problem and therefore made a crisis out of everything. There was a mountain out of a molehill. There was an avalanche out of a snowball. And we made huge issues out of things that were minute. Jesus put it this way to the scribes and Pharisees one day. He told them that they strain at a gnat and they swallow a camel. And if you were raised in an environment like that, you have learned to activate your adrenaline glands and to anticipate bad things to come rather than positive things to come. And therefore you lived in an unsafe environment or an environment that was not very stable for you. Therefore you created anticipatory anxiety. On top of that, many people, more than most that come to my office, have a chemical imbalance. A chemical imbalance either from a thyroid issue. Thyroid can throw off your chemistry to make you feel anxious or make you feel tired, and therefore anticipating bad things to come because you are tired, you're exhausted. Some people have sugar problems, sugar issues, low sugar, hypoglycemia, or if they have sugar issues which they maybe are pre-diabetic and you're secreting too much insulin and you don't have enough sugar, or not enough insulin and too much sugar. Sugar imbalance in your body can cause all kinds of feelings of anxiety. And remember, the anticipating of bad things to come is also unmet expectations, which lead to depression. If you have a serotonin issue in your brain, which many people have a genetic predisposition for what I call under-the-radar depression. Under-the-radar depression is just enough depression to make you not feel like you can handle pressure past a certain point. You can function perfectly fine on a day-to-day basis by yourself. But when you get a spouse, when you have a family, when you have financial issues, when you have other pressures externally that are not cooperating with you, then that's when this anxiety shows the most, because you have just enough serotonin depletion to not give you that ability to handle pressures past a certain point. Therefore, sometimes anxiety doesn't show its head until much later in life. And then you have a genetic predisposition once pressure is exerted upon your life. So you have anxiety caused from physiological issues. You have anxiety caused from the way you were raised, generational dysfunction, generational sin. And you have anxiety that is caused because you are creating that through a realistic situation, which we all experience. The problem are the other two. The problem with anxiety is when the adrenaline glands are secreting for you to fight or flight, and you have no idea what you're fighting or flighting from. And you have a false sense of insecurity. That's what I call it. Really, it's a false sense of security, but it's also a false sense of insecurity. And therefore, you create an anticipating possible doom in your life. When that happens, you have all kinds of physiological symptoms, as I've said before, because of the secretion of adrenaline that's not being used. When that happens, your body then feels like it's fallen apart, and it causes a domino effect of more anxiety. You're not only anxious about something that might happen, that most likely is not going to happen, but in your mind you believe it to be true, almost like a paranoia. Some people are so afraid of germs that they become obsessive compulsive. They scrub themselves and scrub everything all the time because the germs might have a bad thing to come. The germs might get them. The germs might cause something that might happen in the future. Some people raise their children overly protective because they anticipate bad things to come. There are many Christians that have theology that are always looking to a doomsday. They're always looking for the end of the world or an apocalypse. And therefore it continues to create a false sense of security and a false sense of insecurity. And therefore you develop anxiety disorder. And then it multiplies because now your bodily symptoms are telling you you can't breathe good. You're going through panic attacks. Now you start worrying about the panic attacks, that you might have a disease. You might have a terminal illness. You don't feel well all the time. And therefore, it then snowballs, like I said, from a snowball to an avalanche. You made a mountain out of a molehill. You strained at a gnat, you swallowed a camel. And it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, to the point where you don't even remember what the original fear was of the future, and now you're fearing everything about your body. And the domino effect continues with anxiety disorder. When you live with a person that has anxiety disorder, they're constantly a burden. And the reason why they're a burden, because there's always something wrong. There's always something to fear. There's always anticipation of something bad that's going to come. Therefore, it stifles their ability to look to the future. It stifles their ability to make more money. It stifles their ability to build the relationship. It stifles their ability to let go of the children and let them experience things on their own. It stifles your ability to have faith in God. The Bible says faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. Faith is a verb. In Hebrews chapter 11 in the Bible, it says that by faith Noah built. By faith Sarah conceived. By faith Abraham sojourned. Those are all verbs. Those are all action verbs. And in order to remove anxiety, people need to do something about it. And when you feel that anxious feeling, you need to fight or flight. You need to go out and make money. You need to go out and solve the problem. You need to be able to have the ability to do that. But if you have a chemical imbalance, you will not be able to do that. So the other issue is you need to possibly look into medication. You need to find out what's wrong with your body. You need to see if you need an antidepressant. Most people that come to my office with anxiety disorder has under-the-radar depression. And therefore, once the depression is taken care of, most of their anxiety is resolved. Then we go through the cognitive reconditioning of the mind so that they can get rid of false belief systems of the way they were raised. But we've got to take care of the body first, and so we can get to the behavioral issues. Because everything's about behavior. You've got to change your behavior in order to have hope for the future, in order to relax a little bit. People filled with anxiety make poor choices with relationships. They always gravitate toward an abusive, dysfunctional person. People with anxiety disorder continue to sabotage success. They get the job that they want and then they back out from it. They buy the car that they've been waiting for all their life, and then they take the car back because now they're filled with anxiety and anticipating that they may not be able to make the payments. And they constantly sabotage success. I want to help you with anxiety. Remember, anxiety is simply the anticipation of bad things to come. If you have a depressive disorder or just under-the-radar depression, which most people do, take some medication for it. Find out what's going on with your body. See if there's something you could do to fix the anxiety. Some people have a cervical spine issue in their neck, and it pinches nerves to your thyroid and to your stomach, and it makes you feel anxious. Some people have simply gone to a chiropractor to fix some of the anxious feelings that they've had. There is something you can do about anxiety. And the next thing is, and the most important thing is to get some counseling that will help you identify how you were raised. And if you felt unsafe when you were a child. And if you were raised in a very disturbing, unsettled environment. You will create in your mind anticipating bad things to come. This is Tom Joseph. Go to my website at thewell.net. That's www.atthewell.net, and get more information on how you can get healthy and well. If you go to my website, I have an article about anxiety. Send it to your friends. Send this video to your friends. God bless you and have a wonderful day.